Welcome to the Daily Devo. My name's Joel, and today we're talking about listening and reacting in relationships. Today's verse comes from the book of James, chapter 1, verses 19 and 20, and it says this: "My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires." I'm going to say a phrase, and I want you to think back to yourself about what comes to mind when I say it. Are we ready? Here's the phrase: "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." One more time for you. The phrase is this: "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." I'm not sure what comes to mind for you when I say that phrase. Maybe you're super confused and you're like, who the heck is Sally? But if you're anything like me, when you hear that phrase, you're immediately transported back to your high school algebra class. For me, the phrase, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally," was a memorization tool that our algebra teacher taught us to help us remember the steps we are to take to solve a mathematical equation. See, the P in please stands for parentheses. The E in excuse stands for exponents. M stands for multiply, D stands for divide, and A stands for addition, and lastly, S stands for subtraction. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. This is the order of operations in an algebra equation that ensures you get the correct answer and the desired result. Now, can I actually put this into practice and solve an algebra equation today? Absolutely not. But what I do know from this is that order of operations matters. The order in which you do things is significant and determines the outcome that you get. We know this to be true in mathematics, but can it also be true in relationships? Does order of operations matter in how we interact with people too? I believe that it does. In our verse today, James is writing and he's giving instructions to early Christians on how to live in a way that honors God. And one of the early things that he highlights is that there is an order of operations in how we interact with people that will lead to the most God-honoring outcome. He says we are to be quick to listen and slow to speak. So step 1, listen. Step 2, speak. James is laying out an order of operations that I think as humans we so often get backwards. And if you're anything like me, it's a lot easier to flip this and to speak first. I think as humans we have a desire to be heard, to be understood, and so our first reaction will always be to speak, to make sure that our point gets across, to ensure that what we think about a situation is put out there. And once we've spoken, then and only then do we care to hear about what the other person has to say. The only problem is that this is backwards, and it often results in one or both people involved in the conversation becoming angry. And James is clear that anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires for us as his followers to live. I believe that if we take James' advice seriously, we'll actually get better results in our relationships. If we practice being quick to hear the other person out, to actually put ourselves in their shoes for a second and learn from the perspective that they have, then when we do respond, our response will now be coated in love and understanding for the other person. I believe this will honor God, but it will also honor God's people in our relationships. So my invitation for you today is to reflect on where you've had your order of operations backwards. What relationships have suffered because you're quick to speak, but you hesitate to listen? And then see if you can find one opportunity today to do it the right way, to be quick to listen and slow to speak.